The seasons of a woman's life. Biblical wisdom from women of the Bible. Life is full of seasons. Some bring joy, others bring struggle. There are moments of growth and moments of waiting. But have you ever wondered, what does the Bible say about these seasons? About the unique journey of a woman's life? Today, we're going to explore that question. We'll journey through the 4 major seasons of a woman's life: youth, marriage and motherhood, midlife and the later years, through the lives of remarkable women in the Bible. Women who faced uncertainty, who waited on God, who stepped into their calling, and who left behind a legacy of faith. Their stories are not just ancient history, they are living lessons for every woman today. No matter what season you're in right now, God is walking with you. And in this study, we'll discover how to embrace every stage of life with faith, wisdom, and purpose. If you're new here, welcome to Bible Pathways, where we dive deep into biblical wisdom for everyday life. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of our upcoming studies. And if this message speaks to you, be sure to hit the like button. It helps more women like you find encouragement in God's Word. Now, let's begin. Life moves in seasons. Some are bright and full of new beginnings. Others feel uncertain, challenging, even heavy. But just as the earth moves through spring, summer, fall, and winter, our lives follow a rhythm, one designed by God Himself. The Bible tells us in Ecclesiastes 3:1, "To everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven." This verse reminds us that life is not random. Every season has meaning, whether it's a time of planting, growing, waiting, or harvesting. God is present in all of it. Think about the changing of the seasons in nature. Spring brings new life, a time of beginnings and possibilities. Summer is a season of work, of growth, of flourishing. Fall is a time of transition, where we gather wisdom from our experiences and prepare for the future. And then there's winter, a season of rest, reflection, and sometimes challenges, but also one where God works beneath the surface, preparing for what's to come. Just as God created the natural world to move through these seasons, He has also designed the journey of a woman's life in a similar way. Whether you are in your youth, stepping into marriage and motherhood, navigating midlife, or embracing the later years, God has a purpose for where you are right now. Nothing is wasted. But here's the challenge. Sometimes we resist the season we are in. We long for what was or wish we were further along. We compare our journey to others. We question why certain things are happening the way they are. But the truth is, when we learn to recognize the purpose of each season and trust that God is guiding us through, we can embrace the moment we are in with peace, wisdom, and confidence. Throughout history, countless women have walked through these seasons before us. Their stories recorded in the Bible serve as a blueprint for our own journey. Women like Ruth, who faced uncertainty in her youth yet trusted God's plan. Women like Hannah, who endured deep longing and struggle but held on to faith. Women like Esther, who stepped into purpose in the middle of life's transitions. And women like Elizabeth, who discovered that even in later years, God still had a mission for her. Each of these women lived through different seasons, but one thing remained constant. God was with them through it all, and He is with you too. So, as we move forward in this study, take a moment to reflect. What season are you in right now? Is it a time of new beginnings, a season of growth, a period of transition, or a time of waiting? No matter where you find yourself, God is working. And in the next part of this study, we'll look at how we can fully embrace each season with wisdom and faith. Spring is a season of beginnings. It's a time of discovery, of stepping into new experiences, of learning who you are and where you're meant to go. In a woman's life, this season represents youth, the time when identity is formed, decisions are made, and faith is tested. For many, it's a season filled with excitement and possibility, but it can also be a time of uncertainty. What path should I take? What choices will shape my future? Where is God leading me? In the Bible, we find a young woman who faced these same questions, Ruth. Her story is one of faith, resilience, and divine preparation. And through her journey, we see a powerful example of how God works in the lives of those who trust Him, even in the midst of uncertainty. Ruth's story begins with loss. She was a young widow living in the land of Moab when tragedy struck. Her husband, father-in-law, and brother-in-law all died. Suddenly, her future was uncertain. But in that moment, she made a choice that would change everything. When her mother-in-law Naomi decided to return to Bethlehem, Ruth could have stayed in Moab, choosing the comfort of the familiar. Instead, she took a bold step of faith. In Ruth 1:16-17, she speaks the words that define her character. "Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried." Ruth left behind everything she knew to follow Naomi and to follow God. She didn't have a plan. She didn't know what the future held. But she trusted. And in that trust, God worked. When Ruth arrived in Bethlehem, she didn't sit back and wait for life to happen. She worked. She gleaned in the fields to provide for Naomi. She was faithful in the small things. And because of that faithfulness, God positioned her exactly where she needed to be. Through divine orchestration, she met Boaz, a man of integrity and faith. In time, he became her husband, and Ruth, once a foreigner and widow, became part of the lineage of Jesus Christ. Her story reminds us that this season of life is not just about waiting, it's about preparing. If you are in a season of youth, of new beginnings, here are 3 lessons from Ruth to carry with you. First, be faithful in small things. Ruth didn't know where her life was headed, but she remained diligent in what was before her. Trust that what you're doing now is preparing you for something greater. Second, trust God's timing. Ruth's story shows us that God is always at work, even when we can't see the full picture. If you're waiting for clarity, for opportunities, or for direction, know that God is guiding your steps. And third, surround yourself with godly mentors. Ruth had Naomi, someone older and wiser who helped her navigate life's uncertainties. Having strong, faith-filled influences can shape your decisions in ways that will bless your future. What choices are you making in this season that will impact your future? Are you trusting God's process even when you can't see the outcome? No matter where you are right now, remember, this season is preparing you for something bigger. And just like Ruth, your faithfulness today will lead to God's promises tomorrow. Summer is a season of building. It's a time of love, of family, of stepping into responsibility. It's also a season that brings deep joys and deep struggles. For many women, this season is filled with dreams of marriage, hopes for children, and the work of nurturing a family. But it can also be marked by waiting, by longing, by prayers that seem to go unanswered. No one understands this season better than Hannah. Her story is one of heartache, faith, and the power of persistent prayer. And through her journey, we learn what it means to trust God completely, even when the waiting feels unbearable. Hannah's story begins with a deep sorrow. She was married to a man who loved her, but she was childless. In a culture where motherhood was seen as a woman's highest honor, Hannah's barrenness brought shame, loneliness, and ridicule. Her husband's other wife, Peninnah, had children and mocked Hannah relentlessly. Year after year, Hannah endured this pain, yet in her grief, she did not turn away from God. She turned toward Him. One day, she went to the temple and poured out her soul before the Lord. 1 Samuel 1:10-11 tells us, in her deep anguish, Hannah prayed to the Lord, weeping bitterly. And she made a vow, saying, "Lord Almighty, if you will only look on your servant's misery and remember me, and not forget your servant, but give her a son, then I will give him to the Lord for all the days of his life." Hannah didn't just ask for a child. She surrendered her desires to God's will, and God heard her. In time, she conceived and gave birth to a son, Samuel. True to her promise, she dedicated him to the Lord, bringing him to the temple to serve under Eli, the priest. Imagine the depth of her faith. After years of longing, after the joy of finally holding her child, she still gave him back to God. She understood something so many of us struggle to accept. Every gift from God ultimately belongs to Him. Through Hannah's story, we see 3 powerful truths for women in this season of life. First, prayer changes everything. When Hannah had no answers, she took her pain directly to God. If you're in a season of waiting, whether for a child, a breakthrough, or clarity, don't stop praying. God is listening. Second, motherhood is a ministry. Hannah understood that her child was not just for her own joy, but for God's greater purpose. Whether you're a mother, a mentor, or a spiritual guide to others, your influence is shaping the next generation. Third, God's plan is always greater than our own. Hannah wanted a child, but God was raising up a prophet. Sometimes the answer to our prayers is bigger than we can imagine. What are you praying for in this season? Are you trusting God's timing, even when the waiting is hard? No matter where you are, know this: God sees you, He hears your prayers. And just like Hannah, your faithfulness today will lead to His purpose tomorrow. Fall is a season of transition. The heat of summer fades, the leaves begin to change, and the world shifts into something new. In a woman's life, this season represents midlife, a time of reflection, of reevaluating priorities, and of stepping into greater purpose. For many women, this is a pivotal moment. The years of raising young children may be behind them, careers may shift, responsibilities change, and in this transition, a question often arises: what is my purpose now? The story of Esther speaks powerfully to this season of life. She was a woman who found herself in an unexpected position of influence, facing a decision that could change history. And through her story, we see that God places us exactly where we need to be, sometimes for reasons we don't yet understand. Esther's journey began when she was chosen to be queen of Persia. She had no political ambition. She wasn't seeking power. But suddenly she was placed in a royal position right at the center of a crisis. Her people, the Jews, were facing destruction. A decree had been issued to wipe them out, and Esther was the only one with access to the king. But speaking up was dangerous. Approaching the king uninvited could mean death. She had a choice: stay silent and remain safe, or step out in faith and risk everything. It was in this moment that her uncle Mordecai spoke the words that would define her purpose. Who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this? Esther 4:14. Esther made her decision. She fasted, she prayed, and with great courage she approached the king. Because of her boldness, the Jewish people were saved. Her story is a reminder that midlife is not an ending, it's an opportunity. If you are in this season wondering what comes next, here are 3 lessons from Esther's life to guide you. First, use your influence for God's purpose. Esther didn't seek power, but she used the position God gave her to make a difference. Whether you're a leader in your workplace, your church, or your family, your influence matters. Second, step out in courage, even when you're afraid. Esther knew the risks. She felt fear, but she acted anyway. God calls us to step forward, even when the path isn't clear. Third, trust that God has placed you where you are for a reason. You may not understand why you're in this season, but nothing is random in God's plan. He has a purpose for you, right here, right now. How? Is God calling you to step into your purpose in this season? Is there a new path He is leading you toward? No matter what changes you're facing, know this: God is preparing you for something greater. Just like Esther, you were born for such a time as this. Winter is a season of wisdom. The leaves have fallen, the air is crisp, and the world slows down. In a woman's life, this season represents later years, a time of reflection, of passing down wisdom, of leaving a legacy. For many women, this season can feel isolating. The fast-paced years of raising a family, building a career, or pursuing new opportunities may have slowed. Some wonder if their best years are behind them. But the truth is, God is not done with you. He still has a purpose for your life. Elizabeth's story reminds us of this truth. She was a woman in her later years, well past the age of childbearing. Yet God chose her to bring forth one of the greatest prophets of all time, John the Baptist. Luke 1:36-37 tells us, "Even Elizabeth, your relative, is going to have a child in her old age, and she who was said to be unable to conceive is in her 6th month. For no word from God will ever fail." Elizabeth's life was a testament to faithfulness and trust in God's timing. For years she had prayed for a child, and for years the answer seemed to be no. Yet in what seemed like an impossible moment, God showed her that his plan was not bound by age or limitations, but Elizabeth's impact didn't stop with her own miracle. She became a source of wisdom and encouragement for another young woman, Mary, the mother of Jesus. When Mary, a young virgin, received the overwhelming news that she would bear the Son of God, she went straight to Elizabeth, and Elizabeth welcomed her with open arms, speaking words of confirmation, of encouragement, of faith. "Blessed are you among women, and blessed is the child you will bear." Luke 1:42. She didn't just experience God's blessing. She passed that blessing on to the next generation. Her story teaches us three powerful lessons about this season of life. First, you are never too old for God's plan. If you are still breathing, God still has work for you to do. Whether it's through prayer, wisdom, or influence, your role in His kingdom is not over. Second, mentorship is powerful. Just as Elizabeth encouraged Mary, your wisdom and experiences can shape the lives of younger women. Whether through teaching, guiding, or simply being a listening ear, you have so much to offer. Third, your faithfulness leaves a legacy. Elizabeth's faith brought forth John the Baptist, the very man who prepared the way for Jesus. The things you invest in today, your prayers, your kindness, your words of wisdom, will impact generations to come. So let me ask you, how can you invest in others and leave a spiritual legacy? This season of life is not about slowing down. It's about pouring into others, about embracing the wisdom God has given you, and about trusting that His purpose for you is still unfolding. Life is constantly changing, moving from one season to the next. Some seasons bring excitement and new beginnings, while others bring challenges and uncertainty. But no matter where you are right now, there is one truth that remains the same. God is with you in every stage of life. Ecclesiastes 3:1 reminds us, "To everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven." Your current season is not a mistake. It is not something to rush through or wish away. It is part of God's perfect plan for you. If you are in a season of youth, like Ruth, embrace this time of growth and preparation. Be faithful in the small things because God is shaping your future. If you are in a season of building, of marriage, of motherhood, of nurturing something new, like Hannah, trust that God sees your prayers and hears your heart. Your role is not just important, it is sacred. If you are in a season of transition, like Esther, wondering what comes next, know this: God has placed you where you are for a reason. Step out in courage. Your influence is greater than you realize. And if you are in a season of wisdom and legacy, like Elizabeth, know that your story is not over. Your voice matters. Your faithfulness will bless generations to come. So instead of resisting your season, embrace it. Ask God, what are you teaching me in this moment? How can I grow? How can I trust you more? No matter what stage of life you are in, you are not alone. God is walking with you, guiding your steps, preparing your heart, and leading you toward His perfect purpose. If this message has spoken to you, take a moment to reflect. What season are you in right now? How is God working in your life? Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your story. What season of life are you in right now? Are you in a time of waiting, a season of growth, or stepping into something new? Maybe you're in a place of transition, or perhaps reflect wherever you are. Remember, God is in your season. He is working in ways you must take a moment to reflect. How has God been working in your life during this season? I'll share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this study has blessed you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Bible Pathways for more biblical encouragement. We dive deep into God's Word to help you find wisdom, strength, and purpose in every stage of life. Thank you for watching, and may you continue to walk boldly in the season God has placed you in.